This is an important point that Mehdi Hasan makes on CNN, and it's demonstrably true. It's hard to know how this happens. I think part of it is just a function of people who get on these networks. I'm not as familiar with what goes on CNN, to be honest with you. I don't watch it that often. I don't watch MSNBC that often, to be honest, either. I'm just personally aware the vast majority that have been hired at MSNBC over the past couple of years have been former Republicans or former prosecutors.
Or intelligence.
Or
operatives.
Former intelligence operatives.
It's a retirement community for Republicans who find Trump distasteful, CIA operatives, and federal prosecutors.
I mean, and this is not, you know, I'm not telling tales out of school. This is, you know, you can just watch the TV. You can see the reporting from a couple of years ago that there was a conscious effort by the new, you know, program people at MSNBC to make the network more center right. And they were basically, their plans were waylaid by Donald Trump in many respects. And so, you know, the primetime lineup remains intact. But the fact is that there's just not that many people, for Bernie in particular, who are brought on, who are, and look, you have a lot of hosts, you have a lot of contributors who come on. They don't come on as surrogates for any campaigns, but they have their preferences. I am one of them. My preference is Bernie. And when I get to those offices and I go into the green room and I go up to the studio, I meet no one else who has such a preference. And I am basically like, I don't believe there's anyone lower on the sort of like the list, if there's a list of people who are like utilized or considered at that place than me. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Well, that kind of fits,
but my point,
in a way.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's like, hey, it's the Bernie guy. Put him through the service
I
tour.
don't know if that's the case, to be honest with you. But I don't know that that's the case, but I just know that's the way it just sort of like works out.
Oh, if you backed Harris, they'd put you back prime time, dude.
I don't.
Welcome back to the Sam Hour.
Exactly.
Kamala Harris is my guest again. She's so smart.
Here's
Here's her sister. She's also on the network. No problem there.
Mehdi Hasan on CNN making this point.
We often have Democrats on the panel, but not necessarily progressives, people in the Warren Sanders camp of things. So let me ask you, where do you see those candidacies right now? Because it looks like Elizabeth Warren has slid a little bit in the polls.
She has slid a bit, but I'm not sure how long that slide will continue. I think Bernie Sanders is the story that's not talked about enough. Nevada, New Hampshire, he's led in New Hampshire, the recent, I can't remember so many polls, Quinnipiac, he's leading in New Hampshire. Iowa, he's in the top 3. I mean, you could, I saw Axios story saying that a different candidate could win each of the first 4 states. Right, yeah. You know what? Bernie could also win 3 of the first 4 states. It could happen. There's no reason not to. And I think that's what's interesting. We in the media are very obsessed with the athlete Pete Buttigieg, who was very impressive earlier this year, less so now, I think. And obviously Joe Biden being the front runner for a long time. But it would be madness to write off Warren and Sanders, especially if at some stage you would assume one of them gets out of the race at some stage. So, and then, you know, does the other person pick up all those votes?
No one said is.
I don't even know what that guy was about to say. Yeah, Whitaker. God knows what Whitaker said, but that's the reality. That is the reality. And at least Jake Tapper acknowledged the fact that, like, yeah, we have Democrats on, but not really progressive Democrats. And this is, you know, I don't know how much of a problem it has. I mean, it creates, but again, you see campaigns reacting to what happens on Twitter. And the relationship between cable news and Twitter is pretty tight. And so these things impact each other. And it forces different decisions by campaigns. And it creates different narratives that, you know, if the direct if the direct narrative doesn't necessarily make it to the general public, the meta narrative does. And that's what I was saying, like with Warren, that I think, like, I don't think that to the extent that there was drop off because around the time of her Medicare for all issues was because that she had a 2-stage legislative process for it. But I think that the meta narrative hit people saying, like, she's shaky on this. She's not. It's not even that she's not fully supportive of it. I don't know that people really even are that invested in the top line of this, as much as when you indicate that you're backing off something or that there's controversy around what you do with something. I think it just particularly this year, because people are looking for somebody who's just going to go in and beat Trump, that it just signals like some type of problem.
She also has, and I made this point before, that like she would be somebody who I think what's unfair is I think that her political skill set is very appropriate for a time when it would be prohibitive because of her race and gender, frankly, like in the 1990s, to be a Democratic nominee. Whereas today, I think she could definitely win the nomination, but her political skill set doesn't. I mean, I'm just thinking even on a technological level, like when she does those sort of flip-flops, now everything is just documented in real time. I could very easily see several years ago it being reported on television, and then, you know, paper reporters following her and even giving her credit, like, oh, that was good, the way she kind of dodged out of this position, versus like people just seeing in real time her. I mean, not only
I don't know what flip-flops.
Herself. Well, no, here's a better example. Flip-flop is actually not necessarily the right word. Well, there was on healthcare. She definitely reversed herself on healthcare. But I watched.
How so?
Well, she was a co-sponsor of Bernie's bill and said she wanted to phase out private insurance.
And does her bill not? Hers doesn't do that. Hers does it in two different pieces of legislation.
Her does not do that.
In 2 pieces of legislation, it doesn't.
You know what? I'm sorry. I'm confused. I thought we were talking about Harris.
Oh no, we were
really
talking
sorry.
about Warren.
I'm sorry. It's totally.
Oh no, yeah, I know.
Harris. Back to Harris.
Harris's problem
No. I was
that
about
she
Harris.
never got any.
I wanted to make a point about Harris, not Warren.
Okay.
Sorry, my point, and I think that the other big problem that Harris had just in this post-war was, like, I saw on several occasions when she would get confronted with a tough question, like they asked her when Bernie said felons should vote. Buttigieg said no. Booker said no in pretty demagogic ways. Harris said, I think we should have a serious conversation about that.
Well, it started with the Biden thing, where she criticized his position on busing, and then basically came out with, wow, here is. Put this up. Here is Chris Cillizza and Harry Enton's definitive 2020 power candidate, Democratic candidate power rankings from 51 weeks ago. Number 1, Kamala Harris. Number 2, Beto O'Rourke. Number 3, Joe Biden. Number 4, Cory Booker. Well, you got 1 out of 3. 1 out of 4. Not bad.
Definitive.
There you go.
Jesus.
It's too bad they didn't say definitive 2018 power rankings, because that would have been better. Salty Gates. Sam, is it possible Kampala is dropping out to join Bloomberg as VP? Well, I don't. You don't drop out to join Bloomberg as VP at this point. No,
because you might want to be Buttigieg.
No, it doesn't. You drop out because you've run out of money. If you want to be VP.
I would make an overture to Biden.
You stay in the race. But here's the thing. Bloomberg is only going to run as a third party, will only be in the general election as a third party candidate. And I don't even think that's a guarantee. I think he's going to look and see who the Democratic nominee is, and he's going to look at the polling, and he's going to see, like, what are the chances that I could actually midwife a Donald Trump victory.
The other story that's floating around is that Steyer wants to use this to go after her Senate seat. And so she doesn't want to be, I mean, it's a very bad look to not only be nationally humiliated, but she doesn't
want to lose in California.
She might end not in the top 3 in
Right, exactly.
So she needs
That's what I mean by lose in California.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to go there because that all of a sudden says she's weak. And then Tom Steyer becomes a California senator.
And he really could.
He should run against Dianne Feinstein if he wants.
Talking about.
Well, I would rather anybody else, but
yeah, I mean, literally anybody else.
But he's probably.
Let's get Jank to run against Dianne Feinstein after 2 years.
One at a time, right? Exactly.